Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. This is Sanoba Sultan, and here you are watching another video on Sanoba's World. Today, the topic of our discussion is going to be the Sufi order and how much relevant it is to our religion, Islam, how coherent they are with each other. Now, Sufism itself derives from the word Sufi, derives from the word wool. Wool is this, thick piece of cloth, coarse cloth that was worn by monks, by Christian monks. And then it was worn by these Sufis as a symbol of not wearing comfortable clothes and somehow choosing discomfort, the worldly discomfort, to please God. So Sufism has is a strand of mysticism attributed to the Muslim world, and mysticism, and there are different sort of imagined branches of mysticism. So there are 4 orders of Sufism which are famous, and those orders come from a lineage of so-called saints, and all those lineages of saints have their own paths, or tariqa, as they say, and each order was led by a sheikh or a pir, and then when that sheikh passed away, he sort of gave that torch of Sufi, sort of, as if giving the turban to the next saint who would take his place as the leader, as the next sheikh. And this continues today and is especially very prominent in South Asia and the subcontinent. It's part of the subcontinent culture. The 4 most famous ones of Sufi orders include the first is Qadiriya, the second is Sohrawardiya, the third is Shadiliya, and the fourth is Mevlevi, which is more prominent because you all have seen, and this was Mevlevi was established by Rumi, and it's famous because you see the dancing dervish, so who are in some form of trance and doing sort of mystical rituals to as a stage of spirituality. So these are the 4 orders of Sufism, most famous. But there's one order in particular which sort of opened, which has its base in the Western world, and that was the Inayati order. So Inayat Khan, who was from the 20th century, he established his Sufi order, and then his son took over and further expanded the Inayati order. So the Western world, so many say that the introduction of Sufism to the Western world was by the Inayati order. Yeah, so this is a little about the chain of lineage in the Sufi order. But here is the thing. Now, who are Sufis? Sufis are basically, according to the Sufis, according to those who study them, they say they are people who are close to God. So they are mostly in what they do is that they mostly practice zikr. Zikr is remembrance of Allah, and they are humble, and they remember Allah, and they are um, they sort of stay away from worldly desires, too much worldly desires. They live a simple life. And but here is the thing. This is if these are the attributes which I have just told you about Sufism, this can be applied to many human beings, to many Muslims, normal Muslims in our daily lives, who do not have the tag of being a Sufi. They might just be normal people who have different professions, and they could have this sort of lifestyle where they go to mosque, they pray, they abstain from wrong means of income, or I'm saying the tag of Sufi, the attributes of being a Sufi can be applied to people from different backgrounds and different social classes within our own society. So what I'm going to take this forward, but I'm going to say that if being a Sufi is being close to God, then they say they are actually, what the Sufis say is Sufis are actually the Aulia. Aulia. Aulia is people who are, it derives from the word wali, and people who are really close to Allah and who are pious people. But again, the problem comes with the word Sufi. I mean, these are attributes that can be applied to Muslims. Why are we not saying that they are Muslims? Why are we taking it as a strand away from Islam, as if, and of course they say this is not a strand away from Islam, this is actually a way to connect to Allah. Why don't you just say you are a practicing Muslim? Why are we differentiating Sufi as a different order, as some sort of fiqh? Fiqh means some sort of branch of religion. So yes, I would sort of speed this up and say, well, the main reason they say in South Asia especially that Islam spread in South Asia because of Sufis, and they came here. Now the main reason for the spread of Sufi order is definitely the language barrier for the non-Arabs. People read the Quran in Arabic, but they do not know what it means. And because they don't speak Arabic, I don't speak Arabic, it's a learned language here for everybody, the non-Arab speaking world. So this language barrier gave way to, there was a vacuum, and that vacuum was filled by mystics who emotionally charge the masses through poetry, songs, and other mediums, which you will not find in the Arab world, but you will find here, because these people, these mystics, these Sufis, were the ones who introduced Islam to this part of the subcontinent. I'm not saying all of them, or not sort of, in all, not everywhere it's equal. It's not a homogeneous sort of, that everywhere this is practiced, Sufism and mystical orders. But yeah, there are many places where this continues to hold sway over the general masses. Now, yes, so if you want to know my opinion, I do not practice Sufism. I think I am actually, I'm going to say this very bluntly, I think there's a lot of innovation in it. I think it is biddat. There's a lot of biddat in the practices here. And I'm not going to criticize it, because I'm sure they were pious people and piety would be judged by Allah. But I'm going to highlight some aspects um, where this form of bridging religion or bridging Allah with Sufi order or other orders has led to new variations in our religious beliefs. And again, anything done in extremes is extreme. For example, Sufism itself has stages. So a very normal person who is doing zikr of Allah and is pious and everything, that's the lowest ladder of being a Sufi. That could be any normal person. And then you go to the higher stages of Sufi where who really sort of go out of the ambit of Islam, the Islam that we that exists, that is written, the Quran. Now I'm going to say I'm going to list down some points. The first thing is these Sufis. They perform different rituals, and they have this sort of relation between the peer and the student, as if there is some secret knowledge in Islam which is not known to the public, and only these saints know about it. The so-called saints know about it, and we do not have access to that knowledge. There's no such thing. There's no secret knowledge that the Prophet gave to some selected companions, and then it was not shared with the rest of the Ummah. The way to God has already been declared in Islam. You just have to practice the teachings. So this relation where whatever the peer says, the student has to do it, it has no space in Islam as we know it, because Islam encourages self-study, and you can study it yourself. And this idea that you need a medium to understand God comes, in my opinion, from because of this language barrier, because we don't speak, because we do not understand Arabic. The second point is, in recent years, what has sort of this debate has generated, especially I came across it, is that, for example, the rituals of Islam. Now, people started questioning, for example, why do we have to do the sacrifice on Eid? Why can't, rather than sacrificing the these cattle that we sacrifice, why are we spending that much money on sacrificing when we can take that same money and give it to the needy, or give it in charity? Another thing is, why do we have to pray 5 times a day? So for example, somebody says, well, I'm already a good person at heart, I'm not hurting anybody, I think I'm a Muslim, I declare myself a Muslim, I don't have to pray to tell the world that I'm a Muslim. So these sort of debates started to emerge. For example, fasting, I mean, why do we, is it really necessary? All these sort of questions which are questioning the integral rituals of Islam. No, sacrificing on Eid cannot be supplemented by taking that money for charity. Charity is a different component. This is a different component. This is a necessary component. You have to do it. Nothing can replace fasting. Nothing can replace all the aspects. Nothing can replace Hajj. Nothing can replace prayers 5 times a day. So a namaz is a necessary practice. And this is not some, people think, especially in part of South Asia, that praying 5 times a day, this is some higher form of religious practice. No, this is not a higher form of religious practice. This is actually what constitutes you to becoming a Muslim. And you know what? People who teach you about religion, especially here in the subcontinent, you should note how many of them actually pray. And again, I'm not going to say this is some praying is some emblem of piety. I'm saying this is a prerequisite. I'm saying all Muslims have to pray. I pray 5 times a day. I'm not boasting about it. It's just something that I do as a lifestyle choice. The third point is the scientific progression of society has led many to consider, especially in the West, to make religion fashionable, or let's make religion relevant, or let's update religion to the 21st century. No, you do not have to update religion. That's the problem with Christianity and the current crisis faced by the Vatican, because everybody is saying, well, what the Vatican is preaching is not relevant to the 21st century, so why doesn't the church update itself? You've all heard about those criticisms in the media, in the Western media, about the church. But no, the problem is not God. The problem is God does not have to be relevant to you. You have to make yourself relevant to Allah. So you have to make yourself worthy in the eyes of Allah. Allah does not need to mold to the 21st century. You have to mold yourself to the way of God, because God is not answerable to you, but you're going to be answerable to God. So that's the thing. And this idea that I'm going to do whatever I want because of my innate desires, because I have only one life and I should do whatever I please, is is not the way it's going to be, because wrong paths lead to troubled minds, and troubled minds lead to a tortured soul. And they say, people in the developing countries have different problems. They have the problems of economics, no access to clean drinking water, and those sort of problems. With the people in the West, they have the problem of being a tortured soul because of the scientific development, which has sort of made them, there's this vacuum in their heart where they say, why is not religion being updated to the 21st century? But no, it's not going to be updated. You have to update, downgrade, whatever the term is. You have to come to terms with religion. Okay. Fourthly is this is throughout the Quran. Why Sufism or Biddat or why those who have studied Quran are against this notion of taking it to extremes is because Allah is a very, very possessive God. Allah is very possessive. And by saying Allah is very possessive, I mean Allah is very possessive about his title as God. And what's the biggest sin in Islam? The biggest sin in Islam is shirk. Shirk is equating somebody to the level of God in your mind, in your heart, in how, so that you start to think that they're the ones who are your benefactors in life. And that could be anybody, human, any idol, any dead person, anybody. And that is to give somebody a status so high that it reaches the status of a benefactor in your life. And no, Allah is very, very possessive. And there are many verses in the Quran, and one of them is in Surah Nahl. Surah Nahl means Nahl means, quote, the bee, unquote. And this is verse number 20. It says, quote, and those they invoke other than Allah create nothing, and they themselves are created, unquote. That any Sufi order, any shrine, any tomb, any dead person that you're invoking, they were created by God. And God is a very possessive God. And if you invoke somebody other than God to say, would you please help me? I'm really in trouble. God is going to say, follow them. And this is again written in the Quran. If you have, if you're going to turn away from Allah, if you're going to give anybody that pedestal of being a benefactor other than Allah, that's the biggest sin in Islam. So Allah is very, very possessive about his status as Allah. The next point is wearing amulets, especially in South Asia. Bangles, bells, and dancing in a trance. This has no space in Islam. Why? Because Islam is the practice of what the Prophet and the companions after him did. And have you ever heard of any companion, especially the four caliphs, have you ever heard of them dancing and chanting in some trance? No. Okay, if there was some narration like that, we would have heard it. It's not. And this culture was actually, because, in my opinion, because of the language barrier, to invoke you towards God. But this was not to take center stage as religion. And these shrines and tombs, they hold that place in these people's heart as a very saintly, as a religious symbols in these part of the world. So yes, all this is an innovation in Islam. So how about you simplify your life and do the most basic practice? I would say that the starting point is to pray your namaz and make it a part of your daily routine. Make it a part of your lifestyle. Don't think that praying is something special. Just think that it is a necessity as is eating. And once you make a habit out of it, it's just going to become part of your life like anything else. And lastly, the key in Islam is that Islam does not want you to become a hermit and go up in the hills and stay there while your family is hungry because you are in some trance trying to figure out the meaning of God and such things. No, Islam wants you to be a social person and perform your social duties and your societal duties in a manner which are in sync with religion, in sync with Islam. And I'm just going to wrap this up and say the biggest problem right now in cultures around us is the concept of innovation. There is so much practice going on which has absolutely no place in Islam, which the Prophet did not do, which the companions did not do, but has been happening for centuries. For example, the concept of celebrating the 40th day of the death of a person. This has no religious standing at all. and this is a very local thing in Pakistan. Um, this has no place in Islam. Tombs, shrines, no place in Islam. So these are some of the things. So what I'm trying to say is that the Sufi order, the extremes of Sufi orders, you cannot take them. They are meant to invoke Islam, but not become bigger than the Prophet. And then those people cannot become bigger than Allah. Nobody can become, Allah is Allah. And like I said, Allah is a very, very possessive Allah. And yeah, so if you think that your scientific development is so high, that why don't religion updates itself to your scientific capabilities, well, I'm going to say no to that, because yeah, this is my belief. And I think you have to update yourself to religion. And religion, not in the sense religion, you have to update yourself to the reality of God. And I'm going to also say this, just to round it up, they say, there's this very famous quote: when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. So when somebody is telling you who they are, believe them. So these are my real views. I'm not explaining it just for that. I actually believe these things. So yeah, just take Islam at face value and just practice the very simple things that have been said in Islam, so that life can be a bit simpler, rather than trying to go here and there trying to figure out the meaning of religion, when you can just simply read the Quran and simply read the life of the Prophet and his companions. So that's it. Thank you very much to your audience, and take care of yourself. I shall see you all very soon. Bye bye.